Welcome to another special edition of Daily Airline News covering the search for MH370. And we've got some exciting new evidence from an airline captain flying towards the Middle East on a dark night who saw what he believes was MH370 traveling from left to right going south across his flight path. Before we get into that, a welcome to Richard Godfrey, the UK aerospace engineer who joins me every day. He's the gentleman who developed and perfected Whisper technology to track aircraft. Hi, Richard.
Hello, Jeffrey.
And now I'm going to ask you once again to give us an update of exactly where Armada 7806 is, please.
Yes, it's coming close to Fremantle in Australia for refueling and provisioning. It's expected there tomorrow, local time around 11 o'clock in the morning. It's slowed down slightly, but it's still way ahead of the original schedule.
Now, we've got some fascinating viewer comments that have come into us in the last 24 to 48 hours. One from a pilot on the 7th of March crossing the Indian Ocean towards the Middle East who believes he saw MH370 crossing his path. Richard, I'll let you take us on that particular journey.
Yes, he first contacted Petter Hornfeld, the mentor pilot who has a really nice YouTube channel. And Petter put the pilot in touch with me. He was flying according to a flight plan across the Indian Ocean, and we could discuss the flight route and the waypoints that he was using. And we're contacting the airline operations and engineering department to get more details on the flight. But it seems to me that at about 2014, MH370 crossed his flight path, and the interesting thing is the transponder on this unidentified aircraft was switched off. And ATC in Australia had given this pilot a block clearance so they could uh, change their cruising altitude as the aircraft got lighter at their discretion between 37,000 and 39,000 feet. That means there shouldn't have been any other aircraft in the vicinity, and he should have been free to fly as he wanted and to change altitude as he chose. So he immediately queried that with ATC, air traffic control, still in the Melbourne flight information region at that time. And they said they have no record of any other flight plan in the area. But of course, MH370 diverting from its flight plan to Beijing wouldn't be recorded in the flight plan database. The pilot also reported immediately upon arrival, and it was again investigated, and no flight plan was found for any other aircraft. So it remained a bit of a mystery until everybody heard about the disappearance of MH370, and then questions were being asked. And the pilot yesterday asked me to use Whisper data. So I looked at the time of 2014, which we can show on the screen, and there are
Mhm.
three anomaly Whisper links crossing the flight path, and it appears to pick up both MH370 and his aircraft. the flight route for MH370 is marked in red, and his flight route is marked in black, and the whisper links are marked in blue. I looked again 2 minutes later at 2016, and that confirmed the picture. And I looked again at 2028 because in the original study we did, we mentioned there was another aircraft, SQ478 from Singapore to Johannesburg. So we're tracking now in more detail all of these aircraft from takeoff to landing, and we'll keep you informed of the outcome of the investigation.
Well, it's really fascinating that he reported it to ATC. It's the first I've ever heard of it. And it seems to be, one of the only, well, it appears to be the only visual confirmation we have of the aircraft flying south on that day.
Indeed, and so we're going to investigate and pin this down in location and timing, and it will be an important factor in to add to the other evidence that we have gathered.
And for viewers' interest, if you want more facts and a little bit of fiction, look at our episode from yesterday where we covered the fact and the fiction of MH370. It's a very enlightening episode. Well, we think so anyway. But we've had some other really interesting viewer questions. Quite a few have come to us with the fire scenario. Can you talk to that scenario, please, Richard?
Yes, have been several incidents recorded of aircraft catching fire, and a lot of people have pointed to previous incidents for the Boeing 777. Fortunately, those incidents they caught fire on the ground. But they also point to the lithium batteries that were in the cargo that are well known to cause fire. The standard procedure, however, for an aircraft with an uncontrolled or uncontained fire is to seek the nearest airport and to land as soon as possible. So, for example, in the case of MH370 going out over the South China Sea, the nearest airport would have been Kota Bharu in Malaysia, well capable of taking a Boeing 777 in an emergency, and he could have landed there within 20 minutes or so. But of course, there was no emergency call and no emergency landing anywhere. So and we now know MH370 carried on for 7 hours, 37 minutes in total. So I don't believe there was a fire on board.
Exactly. We've also had a number of folks who've asked us about serial numbers on the debris. And of course, a lot of folks have said, the debris wasn't from MH370. Can you talk to that question, Richard?
Yes, been 43 items of debris that have been found and handed in to the authorities. And on many of those items, we can show photographs of the serial numbers that have been found or the part numbers that have been found. They even went as far as checking each item against the Boeing original drawings for that item, and checking even the stenciling on the item. Every item can have a part number stenciled on it, and all of the stencils match up actually with the stencil that Malaysian Airlines use, which is a little bit different to those generally used by Boeing. But when you get a part number lining up, or even a line number, each aircraft has a line number from the production line, um, and uh, and when the actual serial number all lines up with the records, then you can be pretty sure it came from MH370, or you can be very sure it came from a Boeing 777, and there was only one that crashed in the Indian Ocean at any time ever. So it becomes a pretty firmed up case.
It sure does. It sure does. Now, another one came through is can you switch off the power to the A cars from the cockpit?
Well, that's a bit of a confused question because
Yes.
ACARS is not a box with a power that you switch on and off. It's actually an application which is running. So it's like an app on your mobile phone. You can switch the power off, and of course, then the app doesn't run. You can actually in the cockpit switch ACARS off. We have a screenshot where we show the ACARS manager page in the cockpit systems, and you can choose either VHF or satellite for the communication of these ACARS messages, and you can, click both off if you want. But I think what the question is referring to is the SATCOM system, which
Yes.
is the satellite connection to ground. And yes, you can switch that off, not directly the SATCOM system, because that box is sitting in the back of the aircraft in an overhead compartment. But you can switch off the appropriate electrical buses. And we have a screenshot of the power management control panel and all the circuit breakers that you have in the overhead cockpit panels, a whole bunch of systems that you can switch off, and that means and pull a circuit breaker but is another option. But you don't have to. The question was also asking, do you have to exit the cockpit and go into
Mm.
the mech under the cockpit? And there's an access with a panel in the floor and a ladder down into that area of the Boeing 777. And the answer is no. You can do all of this from the cockpit.
Okay. Now we've had a couple of questions have just come in. There's been some statement made by somebody on television talking about the wave height and how dangerous it is out there with wave heights of up to 20 meters. Now that seems extraordinary, and I don't think it's right. Have you got some numbers on that, Richard?
Well, the Indian Ocean is a very difficult place, and if you have a tsunami, for example, the recorded wave height for a tsunami off Indonesia back in 2004 was 51 meters. But I looked at the records for this year in the Indian Ocean. The maximum wave height was 10 meters. And when you go to the MH370 search area during the last 10 days, the maximum wave height was 3.1 meters. And I can promise you that Ocean Infinity, checking the weather, including the wave heights, and if they see a storm coming and wave heights which are out of range as far as doing a operational search for MH370 is concerned, then they would avoid that area. And previous ship, Seabed Constructor, in 2018, actually moved out of the search area for a few days to avoid bad weather.
Yes, they're very careful and really quite ultra cautious. They wouldn't be anywhere near those sorts of conditions under any circumstances. Another comment's come through relating to the whisper links, and one particular commentator suggesting it doesn't work because how can you differentiate this aircraft from dozens of others that might fly through that link? Um, I can give the answer, but you can do it far better than me, Richard. So perhaps you can dismiss that one as well.
Yeah, Whisper uses what we call ionospheric communication or skywave communication. It is quite clear that the ionosphere is several hundred kilometers above the Earth, and no aircraft flies at several hundred kilometers above the Earth. The typical commercial aircraft, and we pointed out in previous episodes, there are many of them in the sky at any one time, about 20,000, but they're a maximum altitude of about 10 kilometers. So for the majority of time, the whisper propagation is way higher than any aircraft. Obviously, when a signal is first transmitted near the transmitter, it will be in range of an aircraft height. And when it's received at a receiver, it'll be within range. And any interim landing point, because these ionospheric propagations can do several hops, each hop's around 3,000 kilometers. So if it's a 9,000 kilometer distance, you will have a transmission point, a reception point, and two interim points every 3,000 kilometers or so. And we can know where those locations are, and we have a database of all of the aircraft in the air, and we can check if any aircraft is anywhere near any of those locations. It's quite an arduous exercise, but a computer handling big data has no issue to do that for thousands of aircraft.
Is your demonstration the other day, and again, listeners, go back to that particular episode, which we highlighted. The amount of data being crunched is staggering to ensure that what we're tracking is what we're tracking. So that was very impressive and just gives a bit of a snapshot of the amount of data that's crunched. So yeah, hopefully that will answer our viewer question. So tomorrow, Armada 7806 will be in Fremantle, or in the Fremantle area. It'll be south of Fremantle. We'll be there to cover the arrival, so we'll have some vision of that for you in tomorrow's episode. So, Richard, once again, thank you very much indeed for all your research and bringing us this fascinating new piece of evidence, really, that MH370 was possibly sighted by this airline captain. And viewers, please tune in tomorrow. Please subscribe to us. Please like us. Please leave your comments. We do appreciate them, and we do try and answer them all either manually or on this program. And do tune in tomorrow. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.